you could look at him compared to where he was before and where he was now and say, well, we're done. I mean, we've accomplished our goal. This is what I wanted. We're here.
Yeah. What was Emerson like before training? Best description.
He was the dog that didn't like me.
Objects in mirror may be closer than they appear. Why did you...
Emerson!
What?
I think that's an understatement.
Yeah.
We would not be able to be sitting here. He would have to be inside or muzzled, and even muzzled, I'd have to have a leash on. Emerson? Emerson? Emerson!
Who was in the video that you sent me the other day?
With him in the muzzle and going over, that was
Yeah.
my mom.
Okay.
That was me,
And my dad was there too, and we had Emerson here, and everybody was seated, and we're thinking, okay, he's
I
kind of
literally got up
Yeah.
and I just walked over here, 2 steps, and he immediately got up, he barked, and frankly, aggressively attacked me. If he hadn't had his muzzle on, I'd have been bitten.
Don't run from him, whatever you do.
Now, I can pretty much do anything I want with this guy.
And how long did it take to get to that point after the training?
We gradually worked on it a lot. I mean, you were over and I was over with you, but probably we could do it easily with a muzzle almost a week or so after he got back. And then we would transition maybe a week later where we would start out with a muzzle until he kind of settled down, and then finally got to the point where we knew we didn't need a muzzle. And that whole process probably took a month. We were able to walk and we were able to go to pet stores. We're able to go to lots of outdoor restaurants.
The waffle fries are really nice and crisp, and they just put kosher salt on them. They're really nice flavor.
All right.
Bacon blue cheeseburger and
Which we love to do, and we're able to have friends over. He's able to play with other dogs.
You, Emerson, yeah.
Good boy, Em.
You're my guy. I think you're my guy.
Oh my gosh.
We like that.
I can't believe this, seriously.
Yeah, we like that.
He's able to go to the vet safely. He can actually get medical care.
What did they say when you went to the vet?
They were floored. They were unbelievably, of course they were uncertain at first.
Who's they? Just
so-
for camera purposes.
So we have 2 veterinarians, and both of them had seen him, especially one, had seen him extremely reactive to the point where she could hardly be in the same room. I had to hold on to him with everything I had. He was, I mean, for a full hour of a vet exam, he was lunging, barking, growling. She couldn't get near him. And so when we went back after training, we did muzzle him at first, and the vet staff was able to pet him, handle him, give him vaccinations. He did fine, and he's been back several times since for procedures, and he's very calm. And they actually, after, I think this first time we went back, they even wrote me an email just congratulating me or thanking me or just recognizing what a change it was. And every time I go in there, they just are in awe of the fact that they can approach him and touch him and pet him, and it's just completely different. And they had you know, they had no problems with the way he's trained or, you know, how he got to this point. They were just so amazed at the results.
I mean, if you had told us 2 months ago that we would have had a dog like this, we wouldn't have believed it.
You said you got. And you'd said something earlier about 2 months ago if you'd seen him now.
Oh, absolutely. Frankly, we didn't have any hope for Emerson. We were desperate. We couldn't move around the house. We couldn't be with him. We couldn't interact in any way. We were afraid of him. And he's just a completely different dog now. And I'm comfortable around him. I'm trusting him now. And I couldn't have said that 2 months ago.
Well, training's not complete. He can't open a Corona for me yet.
What about the other training methods that you used? Because this didn't seem like it was working for a month, you know, like you were still working and working. So to get to this point, it took 2 months, whereas I kept saying, just keep going, keep pushing. And why didn't you listen to the other trainers when they said, well, just keep working on it, keep going? And then why did you listen to me when I said, yeah, just keep going? Because it seems like the same thing, right?
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, because it's a learning curve when you get back, and I was in constant contact with questions, and am I doing this right, and how should I do this? And so when you said keep going, first of all, I was seeing results. The results were already there. I was trying to just figure out how to continue that process. With the other training methods, the more I did it, the worse he got. I mean, it was the complete opposite. And I could tell with the other methods, he was not connecting that it was trying to change a behavior or trying to accomplish a goal or trying to enforce a communication. He just looked at me like, sure, I'll take treats. And I didn't really get a sense that there was any understanding of the communication. And so that's part of the reason, but obviously it's hard work when you come back and you have to maintain it, and you said keep going, but you also said, you know, if he's not responding to you, you need to correct harder because you're not achieving your goal, and correct harder. And I would do that,
Hand me
and
my beer, huh?
it definitely worked. Good job.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay. It was right when my thing died. I don't know why it died. What was your skepticisms, I guess, with the training with you guys, as far as what did you think basically about the training before you knew anything about it?
Well, obviously, we were concerned as to the method of training. We'll be honest. We didn't want him hurt in any way, so we were skeptical. I'll never forget when we went with our daughter to pick up Emerson when he was done with your training. You spent a good hour and a half, almost 2 hours, talking to us beforehand, before you even brought Emerson out, explaining your methods, how it worked, answering every question that we had, talking to us about how it would have to continue once he came home. And finally, when you brought Emerson out and you had him, we could see how you were managing with him. And I mean, if you had told us 2 months ago that we would have had a dog like this, we wouldn't have believed it. He's big, he's strong, he's aggressive. I was afraid of him after having been quote unquote attacked. It took me a while to get used to things after he got home, but he's perfectly wonderful now. And
I think you said something to the effect that sometimes the harder part of your job is training the owners as opposed to training the dogs. And I can see the validity of that. The training has to be consistent. You have to understand the method and agree with it and do it. And if you do, in Emerson's case, it has certainly worked.
Was there anything
I think
that you remember specifically about the day?
I think think the thing that struck me the most was in trying to understand how I was going to train him at home and why continuing with some of the training was important. Some of it I thought, well, I don't know if I really need him to do that, or I don't really care if he does that. But you told me it was about respect, that if he's not listening to me, even if it's the smallest thing, why would he listen to me when it's important? So if he won't even sit and follow that command, well, maybe that's not a big deal, but it is a big deal when I tell him to do something and he doesn't do it. So it's not just about the big things, it's about the little things, and how the dog's relationship with you is what's important. I mean, teaching them, sit, stay, teaching them commands is not what this is to me. It's about changing the whole dynamic and the whole relationship through the training.
Yeah. And you told me a little bit ago about, there was like 2 weeks ago you turned a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about up to that 2 weeks, and then what happened at the 2 weeks, and then what happened after?
Yeah. From the time we got home, it was work.
After training.
After training, it was work. It was all the time. I was correcting him all the time. I felt like every new situation was a brand new day. It's like, did you not learn we did this at home? Why can't you do it out here? I mean, it was just kind of, he was doing what eventually I asked him to do, but it was just like kind of this fight for a little while. And then I noticed as he kept getting better and getting exposed to more situations, it just became a lot easier flow, even when we were training. And then about a couple weeks ago, it was just like a whole new weight was lifted off of us. It was like finally he just, all right, I don't have to worry about this. I'm not going to fight this anymore. I've accepted it. So whatever you tell me to do, wherever we are, I'll just do what you want, and not in a sad way. I mean, it was almost just like he could relax, and
He's a lot happier.
He's so much happier. He can go out and do things, and he can be trusted to be around people, and he enjoys it. And I think he just realized that he doesn't have to pick a fight every time we go somewhere, and it just let him be a happy dog and not try to be a protector or a fighter or so reactive in every situation. He just gets to be a
He
good
doesn't
dog.
have to be put in the house when we have company over.
But yeah,
Right.
it was like this weight is lifted off me. I don't have to deal with this. It's a lot of work. Finally, I get to rest. I get to take a break. Whatever I had him do or wanted him to do, it wouldn't hurt him. He didn't need to fight it. I feel like it was a different trust where anything I said, he trusted it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about doing something or he'd get a correction. It was about, I trust what you're saying to me, and that's why I'm doing it for you, not
Yeah.
because of any positive or negative consequence.
Yeah, that's respect. That's really hard. I have a really hard time telling people what respect is.
Because I think people
It's
think
really hard.
respect is like a dominance, like you're going to do what I tell you to do all the time. And they always say respect isn't, what is it? It's not something it's earned.
It's not given, it's earned.
Yeah, or it's not taken, it's earned. But
Right.
And so sometimes I think of it as a trust, a two-way trust. But finally, he trusts me to take care of him, and not vice versa. And I trust him to be reliable when I ask him to do something.
Right.
She's run into some objections, particularly maybe in the Carmel neighborhood. People think that the prong collar or the electronic collar are just terrible. I'm the last person in the world that would ever want to see a dog mistreated. But she has put the collar on me and shown me what it's like. Static electricity from a doorknob is stronger than the setting on that prong collar. The dog is not being hurt, it's just getting his attention.
Right.
I was uneducated, and I didn't understand, because nobody had ever told me there was a different way besides the purely positive clicker treats. And I did that with him, and it was a huge failure. It was awful. He got so much worse. I don't know why, but it was awful, and I just knew I had to find something that was not that, that had a different philosophy to it, because that was not working at
Right.
all.
Right.
And I'm so glad I gave it a try, and I learned a lot.
You led into one of my other questions about what do you do with them now that you weren't able to do before, or that you wanted to do before but you couldn't, and now you're doing it.
Simply having people
Just like this.
over to the house, and being part of the family here and sitting with us.
There's no way he would have been
There was
comfortable.
no way.
Well, we have this wonderful space for entertaining, and we weren't able to use it because he wouldn't allow anybody to come over. Everybody was kind of scared, and so having friends be able to come over and having him enjoy it. But even as simple as going on a walk, I wasn't even able to take him on a walk before training. He was so reactive, and he would scare our neighbors. I remember, this is a good story, the day that I was taking him to your training program, we went out for a walk, one last walk before we got in the car, and as I was leashing them up, I had them leashed, and we were starting to exit the house, and there was an older couple walking down the street on the sidewalk, and just as we came out, they sort of hit the bottom of the driveway. Emerson saw them and went crazy, lunging, barking, growling. I mean, it was everything I could to hold him back. The woman, they started to run and take off. They were so scared. They started to run away, and the woman tripped and went down, other than her husband catching her, and then they literally sprinted down the street. And then I just thought, oh my gosh, I mean, she could have been hurt just because he is the way he is. She could have broken a hip. And I was just like, oh my God, we're getting in the car now, let's go.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that happened, and you were like, I was worried about bringing him, but that was just an affirmation
Oh, yeah.
that I have to.
And
He was a lawsuit with fur.
I was getting concerns from my neighbors. They were talking to my other neighbors, my dog walker. They were starting to show real concern about his safety, and I think it was, had we not gone to training, it would have been a matter of time before somebody either got hurt or they got concerned enough that it would have been an issue in the neighborhood.
Have you seen your neighbors since and talked to them, and what are they saying?
I have, the neighbors that know the most about him are just, they really can't believe how good he's done. And even the neighbors that we don't know that well but have seen him around the neighborhood, I've noticed over the past few weeks, if we're walking down the street, instead of like turning around and running the other direction, they'll at least continue their walk past us. You know, maybe we don't have the friendship where I can say, oh, he's fine now, he's better, but I notice they're not.
They can kind of see that
Yeah,
he's
they
changed.
can see. You can see them prepare, like, there they are, and here he goes, he's gonna go, and then, you know, Emerson just kind of walks down the street, maybe looks at him, and they're like, oh, okay. I mean, you can still tell they're nervous, but now they see how much better he is, and, you know, they wouldn't even come close to us before, but the neighbors we have good relationships with are really impressed, and he was able to, you saw in the one video I sent, we were on a walk, and one of my neighbors wanted to say hello, and it was just fine. It was like, happy to meet you, and both of them were just so thrilled to be able to pet him, and they'd seen a little bit of his bad behavior, but as things got really, really bad, I really couldn't take him out much at all, so.
You respect what he can do. I mean, I know if he bit me, it wouldn't be fun, but he's not going to bite me.
And how do you have that confidence? Because a lot of people want to know, how could I trust? How did you get from where you weren't trusting him to now you can?
Well, as I said, I've always loved dogs. They seemingly have loved me. The only dog before Emerson that I ever met in my entire life that I couldn't get along with was one that sat behind the reception desk at a motel I used to stay at. It had been police trained, and it was there specifically to protect the receptionist at the motel. And no matter how many cookies and so forth I brought that dog, my various times I stayed there, he would just never really warm up to me. So Emerson was kind of like that. But once he'd had the training and I realized the method, what I could do, what I should do, I just gradually have worked with him. Jenny has asked us to be guinea pigs of a sort, to try different things, you know, come in the house without me being here, whatever. And it's gotten along, you know, just step by step to the point that he accepts us. He understands that he's not supposed to be aggressive. And I just don't have any fear of him. It may be a step-by-step process.
It does come in steps. You can't come back from the training that Lee has done and expect it to be, you know, overnight all right. You have to take it in steps. He wore a muzzle once he got home for a while. And then gradually, after we saw that, you know, things were getting better, the muzzle came off. And I have to say, I was afraid of him. He attacked me at one point, and it took a while, probably a good month after he came back from your training, before I felt I could trust him. I was scared. He's big, he's powerful, and his bark is very loud, and it's scary. But gradually you see that, step by step, that we could trust him. And now I am no longer afraid of him.
And then maybe anybody can say this, but how long did he stay with me? Because I think I kept him for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, full
And
2 weeks.
yeah,
I
and
think.
so just kind of repeat how long he stayed with me, how long we worked together, and then how long he's been up to this point. How long has this whole process taken? Just kind of walk through it a little bit.
We are actually, I think as of yesterday, almost exactly 2 months since I picked him up. So from picking him up till this dog here is 2 months. So I had worked with him for several weeks before I contacted you, and things were going very badly. We were able to get him in with you relatively quickly, and he was originally scheduled to spend 10 days, and we came up on the 10th day and did some work. We spent almost half a day at least with you, where I practiced what I needed to do. You explained, we asked questions. We kind of decided that maybe a extra couple days would be good for him, so we left and he stayed a couple more days. So when I came back again, it was, I think, right at 2 weeks that you had him. And then when I took him home, like I said, probably for the first few weeks or so, it was a little bit of an uphill battle. By the first month, we started to, I think that's when we really started to have a lot of mutual trust, and we could rely on him to not be aggressive and to behave and to pretty reliably understand that he needed to follow what I was saying or be corrected, and he was okay with that. And then, like I said, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, so about a month and a half after we left training, is when he really started to turn a corner to the point where it just sort of became really easy for him and for me to sort of understand, these are the boundaries, these are the rules, this is what I expect from you. And it was almost like I had to make up scenarios to test his need for a correction. So he was pretty much doing what I wanted him to do. And so unless I purposely went out of my way to make up something like, we're gonna have you stay down and just stay there for 30 minutes. I mean, that wouldn't be something normally part of our lives, but I was having to kind of manufacture these things.
Some drills.
She has
Yeah.
manufactured different scenarios where my wife and I were the minor actors in the play. I'd be the approaching stranger or whatever it might be, just to see how he would react, and if he reacted poorly, she would correct him. And again, it's been part of the training process.
I felt like the first month or so, it was like every new situation, every new person, every new place, every new, whether it was daytime, it was different than nighttime, whether it was outdoors, it was different than indoors. It was like every little thing, I'm like, oh. And then finally, like I said, I think the turning point happened. He just kind of accepted it, like, it's wherever you say, wherever we are, whoever we're with, whatever we're doing, it's still your choice, not mine. And so then it became easier all around. It wasn't so specific to a situation.
Do you feel like you could go to a restaurant you've never been to before and he would respond?
We try, yeah, we try. We have one we love, but we try new restaurants all the time, and partially because we like to, but also to give him that variety of, we don't just behave at this restaurant, we also have to behave at these as well. And because every restaurant has a little bit different level of dog friendliness, and where, you know, dogs might be welcome in one place, they might not be quite as welcome, and so the behavior has to be consistent no matter where we go. And different people, you either have people that he is like a dog with a gravitational pull and you can't keep people away from him, they always want to go pet the German Shepherd, or you have people that you're like, hey, you want to pet my dog, and they're like, no. I mean, you're kind of all or nothing with dogs this size, I think. But he's able, people say, can I pet your dog? Little kids come over and, you know, yeah, you can pet my dog, and it's no problem anymore.
Did you talk to any other trainers other than me, and what did they say, or
Before
did
you mean?
yeah, before you found me, or what did you do to seek other trainers, or did you get advice from other people, or what was that process like?
This is my third dog, and so I had trained the first two with various trainers over the years, and it was largely based on the clicker and the treats and the positive reinforcement, which was fine for my other two dogs. And then when he started having behavioral problems, I had I think one or two trainers come to the house to try to assess him, give me some advice. What am I doing wrong? I mean, that was my main thing. Why am I doing this? And the more I'm doing it, the worse it's getting. And so I had a couple trainers come in. They basically just sort of encouraged me to keep working at it. I took him to a veterinary behavioral clinic that I had visited with one of my other dogs, and they diagnosed him with severe fear aggression, and they again basically said, just keep doing what you're doing, keep working at it. And they gave me a couple, different exercises, but it was sort of all along the same philosophy. I was told, under no, it's not going to be good for him if he gets any sort of, negative feedback.
They told you it wouldn't be good for him.
They told me it wouldn't be good. They said dogs with this type of fear aggression typically don't do well with that sort of negative reinforcement or correction type training. But I thought, well, this isn't working. So I guess that's when I started doing some research and thinking, well, if this is making him worse, let's try maybe the opposite of that and see where that gets us. Because right now, I mean, I had really no choice. They said, you'll either have to isolate him or, return him or whatever. And I wasn't going to return him. So it just meant him having a life inside without any interaction. And anything was better than that. I mean, I was open to trying anything to give my dog a better life. And
there was a real fear that something was going to happen where animal control would be called and the poor dog would have to be put down. And we had to do something different than what we'd been doing.
I've since touched base with we were just talking about this, I've since touched base with the behavioral clinic. They kind of contact you and follow up, and I told them this is what I did and it worked. And they said, well, that's great. We typically don't advise that, but okay. that was it.
They may not have agreed with the method, but it's hard to argue with success.
Yeah.